You know, a lot of times when I read articles like this, I tell myself, I am so happy that I decided to start prepping a long time ago. No water for crops, horrific wildfires, colossal dust storms, and draconian water restrictions. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I hope you're all doing well. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the third video that I put out on this, and I feel that it is very important that this be documented. Because I feel that in this case, history is repeating itself, and the entire nation, amongst other nations that rely on the exports of food that the United States produces, will feel the pain. The mega drought that has almost the entire western half of the country in a death grip is starting to become extremely painful. In some areas, irrigation water is being totally cut off for farmers. And that is going to result in a totally lost year for many of them. Not just for them, ladies and gentlemen, for us as well. Not only will the produce and products that are grown in California become a lot more expensive, but I would say that some products, especially the nuts, the almonds, the walnuts, things like that, may not be available at all. What a lot of people don't understand is that it takes an awful lot of water to grow nuts. For example, to grow one almond, it takes about 1 gallon of water. Now think about that. Every time that you open up a bag that's full of almonds. Without water, you simply cannot grow crops. And irrigation water is the difference between success and failure for multitudes of Western farmers. Scientists are also warning that this upcoming wildfire season could be even worse than last year due to the bone-dry conditions. For me, it is difficult to imagine a wildfire season that is any worse than what we experienced in 2021. But this is what they are telling us. This mega drought has already been going on for many years, and experts are giving us very little hope that things will improve anytime in the foreseeable future. In fact, CBS News is reporting that this current drought is in danger of evolving into a permanent drought. This is where I don't understand why our elected officials insist on spending money on new infrastructure instead of fixing and repairing the infrastructure that we already have. For example, their rail line, their high-speed rail line that they've dumped billions of dollars into. Instead of doing that, why can they not build desalination plants? Now, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not saying that I know everything about desalination plants. However, from what I understand, we can take water from the oceans and turn it into potable water. And instead of restricting the water that the farmers are getting to feed to the public so that they can drink water and cook with water, which they need to do, they can be feeding the public water that has been desalinated from the oceans and then allowing the farmers to grow their crops. But then again, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I don't know everything, and I'm sure that it's a little more complicated than just me thinking out loud. Carrying on here. Extreme drought across the western U.S. has become as reliable as a summer afternoon thunderstorm in Florida, and news headlines about drought in the West can seem a bit like a broken record, with some scientists saying the region is on the precipice of a permanent drought. And as you see this map here, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually gotten worse from the map that I showed on the last video that I did about this subject matter. It says here that even during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, there was always hope that the drought would end and normal conditions would return. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that hope did not work out. As we all know from studying the Dust Bowl from the 1930s, a lot of families, especially farmers, had to abandon their land and leave because the conditions were not conducive to farming or even to living. The western half of the country desperately needed a healthy level of precipitation during last winter's wet season, but instead conditions were much drier than usual. Consequently, this past winter's wet season was not very wet at all. In fact, it just added insult to injury, with only 25 to 50% of normal rainfall falling across much of Southwest and California. This followed one of the driest and hottest summers in modern times, with 2 historic heat waves a summer monsoon cycle that simply did not even show up, and the worst fire season in modern times. Now we are moving into the dry season, and there is simply not enough water for everyone. Along the California-Oregon border, things just went from bad to worse. Farmers in the region already knew that they would be getting much less water this year, but now federal officials have decided to completely shut the water off for most farmers. Man, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that most people know what the magnitude of this problem is going to bring upon us. You know, a lot of times when I read articles like this, I tell myself, I am so happy that I decided to start prepping a long time ago. Not saying that it's too late for those of you that have not started preparing. It's never too late. And I always say that slow and steady wins the race. However, there will come a time, or there will come a day, where time will run out. So if you're not preparing, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to start. The water crisis along the California-Oregon border went from dire to catastrophic this week, as federal regulators shut off irrigation water to farmers from a critical reservoir and said they would not send extra water to dying salmon downstream or to a half-dozen wildlife refuge that harbor millions of migrating birds each year. In what is shaping up to be the worst water crisis in generations, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation said it would not release water this season into the main canal that feeds the bulk of the massive Klamath Reclamation Project, marking a first for the 114-year-old irrigation system. The agency announced last month that hundreds of irrigators would get dramatically less water than usual, but a worsening drought picture means water will be completely shut off instead. Needless to say, for many of them, no water will mean no crops. Oregon Governor Kate Brown has already declared a drought emergency. So has California Governor Gavin Newsom. The state of California grows more of our vegetables than anyone else does, and this growing water crisis is forcing many farmers in the state to make some heartbreaking decisions. With the uncertainty of water, some Central Valley farmers are destroying their crops ahead of the summer season in order to survive. It's impacting jobs and soon possibly the grocery shelves. In many instances, farmers are destroying some of their crops in order to give other crops half a chance of making it. This is already a major national crisis, and it's getting worse with each passing month. According to the NOAA, the soil moisture content in southwestern states is now the lowest it has been in at least 120 years. You have to grasp the meaning of this, ladies and gentlemen. The lowest that it has been in 120 years. It's all cyclic, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we can't panic, because it's going to happen anyways. That means that things weren't even this bad during the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. As I have discussed in previous articles, colossal dust storms are now regularly happening in the western half of the country. In fact, some of them are so large you can see them from space. In addition to being extremely unpleasant, these dust storms can also spread fungal spores that cause valley fever. Sadly, extremely dry conditions create an ideal environment for fires. Last year's wildfire season was a complete and utter nightmare. But now officials are warning that 2021 could be even worse. It is hard to imagine anything worse than what we witnessed in California last year, but it appears that things are off to an even earlier start this year. At this moment, an absolutely massive fire is burning out of control in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County authorities looked Sunday for a potential arsonist who might have set off a brush fire that forced the mandatory evacuation of about 1,000 people. Cool and wet conditions overnight helped prevent the Palisades fire from spreading beyond the 750 acres it had reached Saturday. But the LA Fire Department said in an update Sunday morning that warming weather and afternoon winds may push the blaze northwest, threatening homes, as it rips through dense mountain vegetation that is very dry and has not burned in 50 years. Oh my goodness, that's just like a tinderbox, ladies and gentlemen. It almost seems like the West Coast is under some sort of curse. Whenever it seems like things couldn't get any worse, somehow they do. Scientists tell us that another very dry summer is looming, and that is extremely bad news for the entire region. Dust Bowl conditions have returned, and it appears that they will be with us for a long time to come. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and leave it off at that today. I hope you got something out of this. Just continue to prepare. Take a look at the things that come out of California. If you use those things, you might want to think about stocking up on those things. A few days ago, I purchased a set of tires for my truck. Why? Because I knew that I'm going to need them in the future. And the tires that I have now are probably down to about maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch of thread. So I figure, you know what, let me purchase these now. Even though I could probably get about another year out of the tires that I have currently, I'm going to purchase these now, just in case. And here I come to find out, during Sutton Days' live stream on Monday night, that we have a tire shortage. I didn't even know about that, but I figured we would sooner or later, because we're having a shortage of rubber, a shortage of oil, and all these things with transportation. You know, we can get into all of the shortages and everything that we're going through, ladies and gentlemen. But by now, with everything that's gone on in the last year, we should all be aware that we need to prepare. Having said that, have a great day today. Thank you very much for joining me today and spending a few minutes with me this morning. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper. I am out. Ay, 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 ay. No llores.
Nutrient survival isn't just survival food. It's special ops grade. Built to the nutritional standards of the U.S. Special Ops and packed with 40 essential nutrients. Formulated to sustain energy, sharpen focus, and keep you and your family thriving during any emergency. Real food, real ingredients. Oh, and a 25-year shelf life. Our meals will kick your taste buds in the mouth and have them coming back for dessert. Yeah, we've got that too. So whether you're digging in or bugging out, you don't just survive an emergency situation, you thrive in it. Nutrient survival, feed your freedom.